are now listening to the IELTS podcast. Learn from tutors and ex-examiners who are masters of IELTS preparation. Your host, Ben Worthington.
In this tutorial, we are looking at the IELTS listening exam. We're going to look at the common question types. We're going to look at the traps that they make. This one is very, very interesting. It's going to be very valuable to you. We're going to look at some preparation strategies that you can use, and we're going to look at strategies for achieving higher bands. Basically, if you're going for a band 6, then you need to focus on XYZ sections, whereas if you're going for a band 8, you need to focus on ABC sections, and we're going to dive into that in a little bit more detail. There are 4 sections: section 1, 2, 3 and 4. Section 1, a conversation between 2 people in an everyday context. Number 2, a monologue set in an everyday social context. That's just one person talking. Section 3, a conversation of up to 4 people, probably set in an educational or training context. And then number 4, an academic subject. Section 4 is usually a little bit more dense, more specific, more specialized. So each section, 10 questions, a total of 40 questions. These marks are then converted into the IELTS band 9 band scale that ends with 9, and for most of us will start at 5. It's very unlikely you're going to get a band 4, band 3, very roughly between 5 and 9. And as you know, the scores are reported in whole or half bands. The question types, you're going to get multiple choice, matching, plan, map, diagram, labeling, it's called, completion, form completion, note completion, table completion, and flow chart completion, and finally summary completion. Let's have a look at the traps. This is probably one of the most valuable parts of this tutorial. Now, the first one is contradictory information. The speakers might provide information and then correct or modify it later. For example, the seminar will be held on March the 12th. Oh wait, I just got an update. It's actually been rescheduled to March 19th. Can you see? A beginner student or a starter student, let's say, would just catch seminar held on March 12th. March 12th is the answer. No. Got to listen out for that contradiction. So don't write down your answer until you've heard the full sentence. Next one, script paraphrasing. So the answers might be paraphrased rather than directly lifted from the audio. So the script you might hear, our library is renowned for its extensive collection of historical documents, many of which date back several centuries. So the answer might not explicitly say historical documents. Instead, it could be paraphrased as ancient manuscripts or old records. So the key here is to understand the concept rather than looking for the exact words. Distractors. These are quite annoying, to be honest. So a distractor is when the information is similar but not exactly what the question asks. So the script might sound like this. The art class is available on both Monday and Thursday afternoons, but if you want to attend the advanced session, it's only on Thursday. So here, the mention of Monday is a distractor. The focus should be on the day when the advanced session is available, which is only on Thursday. So this tests your ability to filter the relevant information from similar sounding details. The challenge really lies in identifying and accurately interpreting the key information amidst all the distractions and modifications in the script. And I can give you some strategies to help you build this skill, to help you fully excel and get the score you deserve for the IELTS listening. So the first one I picked up from a successful student, and that is reverse engineering. So we get a mock test and we look at the answers first. We look at how the answers are framed, and we start to become aware of when we're getting distractors, when we're getting paraphrasing, or when we're getting, what was the other one, contradictory information. And you start to get a feel. For this, I recommend the Cambridge IELTS books. I think it's like 15 or 19 now, whatever. And you can get those books, you can look at the scripts, you can listen at the same time, and you start to get a real feel for the questions and the form. And if you do this enough, on exam day, you can start to identify when a trap is being set up. For example, the speaker might explicitly say, "Oh yes, it's definitely on Mondays," and if you've done enough reverse engineering, and if you're confident, you probably start to recognize, like, that was too easy. That's a trap. Let's wait for the contradiction. Let's wait for the paraphrase, and then sure enough, it might come. So reverse engineering, and don't just reverse engineer one, reverse a couple of them, get a feel for it. Spend some time on this. This is a self-study skill. It's pointless going to an IELTS preparation course and they tell you this. The listening and the reading are two areas of the test where you can really just prepare for yourself. You don't really need that much guidance, but the speaking and writing, obviously you do need the guidance, but reading and listening are just areas for self-study. Another preparation strategy is to master the language structures. When you can recognize common phrases or sentence structures, then you can start to predict your answers. For example, if the question requires a date, then we can be on the lookout for prepositions such as on, the, or from, or until, or if it's a year, in. By just getting more immersed in the language, and again, by doing the reverse engineering and by doing mock tests, we can start to get a feel for the sentence structures and the common phrases we're going to find in the exam. Mock exams. Now, a lot of students approach doing mock exams wrong. The best way, the most efficient way, is just to do the mock test from beginning to end. And you will probably find that a certain area of the test is costing you the most points. It might be labeling a diagram, for example, in which case you need to just get on your next mock test that you do, just focus on labeling a diagram. And again, for the next mock test, and once you've got that up to a satisfactory level, do another entire mock test and you'll find the next weak spot. I know this is time consuming. I know it's probably not the most entertaining way to spend a Saturday afternoon. However, you've just got to put it in perspective. You lose maybe 4 or 5 Saturday afternoons on this, and the next 12 months, your life will change significantly. So just keep it all in perspective. One of my favorite the next technique is one of my favorites. This is transcription. You listen to audio materials. For this, you don't have to listen to mock exams. Obviously, it's better, but I know it can be challenging to transcribe an entire mock exam. For this, I recommend you choose material that you enjoy. It could be a comedy podcast, a podcast about the Premier League, a podcast about architecture, and transcribe it. Also, YouTube could be a good way to practice, because nowadays you can see the transcription. It's automatically generated, but it's better than nothing. Sorry, some of them are automatically generated, some of them have been human transcribed and then uploaded, in which case you just turn on the captions and you can start to transcribe and compare your transcription with what you hear. This is a very powerful way to improve your language skills overall, because you're going to be learning new vocabulary. The first time you learn that new vocabulary, you'll hear how it is pronounced correctly, and you'll hear it in its natural environment, in context, which is a vastly superior way to acquire vocabulary as compared to lists, for example. Focused listening. Now, focused listening is it's one of those skills that's not only going to help you in the IELTS, but it's also going to help you just in life when you're speaking to somebody in English or even in your native language. If you struggle with this, it's probably because you've got a lack of concentration skills. And just as a side note, you're talking to somebody maybe, and you're talking about the new roadworks on, I don't know, Manchester Road, for example. And they start talking about a traffic light on the other side of Leeds. You know that person hasn't got really focused listening skills because they just kind of changed it. And also when you're talking to somebody and you get that feeling that you can see it on their face, and you get that feeling that actually this person is having the entire conversation in their head and they're just waiting for me to finish what I say so that they can speak. If somebody's a focused listener, you will not you would not behave like that. And a skill to develop your listening skills in general conversation is just to repeat in your head what they're saying, just to keep yourself focused on what they're saying. Now back to the IELTS exam, we can pay special attention to linkers in the sentence because this might signal an important piece of information. Now, if you're going for a band 7, you probably want to focus more time and energy on sections 1, 2, and 3. Improving your accuracy in these sections is probably more manageable. Now, if you're going for a band 8 or 9, then you want to really pick up the last remaining points, which are in section 8. This is the most challenging part of the exam. So you need to practice listening to complex academic discourse and specialized vocabulary. Now, when you're going for your band 8 or 9, you're going to probably hear examples of, you're probably going to hear topic complexity. This means that the information is probably abstract or quite specialized. It could relate to environmental science, history, sociology. It could be a lecture that discusses the implications of climate change or marine ecosystems. So it's very, very specialist. So again, this comes back to your overall preparation strategy. What are you watching when you're having dinner? Are you watching some comedy show in your own language, or are you watching an academic discourse on marine ecosystems, for example? And I know it doesn't sound that fun, but as I said before, a couple of Saturdays, a couple of months of just complete immersion in your IELTS, complete focus, can have a huge impact on the rest of your life. So it's worth it. It's worth it. Next, of course, because we've got complex vocabulary, it's going to come specialized vocabulary is also going to be required. You're going to have to understand words such as sustainable development, anthropological studies, biodiversity, all of these very specific topic-specific vocabulary. Need to understand it all. Also, the ability to kind of guess the meaning. For example, the word I just said, biodiversity. You may not have heard that before, but if you know what bio means, something related to biological, the ecosystem, and then diversity, you probably know what that means. So biodiversity means, range and variety in a biological sense. Okay, so you've got to be able to develop this skill of also predicting or guessing what words mean. Dense information. You need to be able to process dense information and pay attention to detail. In part 4, it's going to be very information rich. There's going to be a quick unloading of lots of information, scientific processes or theories, and being able to process that information. And it's going to be at native speaker speed as well. Maybe it's even going to be an accent that you don't understand. So you've got all of these processes going on at the same time. This is why next time you have dinner, perhaps put into YouTube, scientific discourse on biodiversity lecture, something like that, right? And also just make sure you're listening to authentic native English speaker material. Maybe just at the end of your search, put UK or put USA or Harvard or Oxford, whatever, and try just go for something where you're 100% certain you're listening to a native English speaker. Inference. This is another skill. Some answers might require you to infer information from what is said, rather than just picking out facts. For example, understanding the speaker's attitude or the implications of a certain theory when it's not explicitly said. Okay, so this is like getting a whole paragraph of information and then just sort of like, actually, I guess from what the speaker said, overall, I can infer that they are against this topic. And this is quite a tricky skill to have, to develop. But it's not impossible, but it can be quite challenging. If you come from an academic environment, then it's possibly going to be a little bit easier for you. Let me give you an example of inference when you infer something. So inference, a sample script. While discussing the theory of cognitive dissonance, it's crucial to note that individuals often experience discomfort when their beliefs clash with new information, leading to an alteration in their attitudes of behavior. So what is actually being said there? Well, here the listener must infer that the psychological implications of cognitive dissonance are how it affects individuals' beliefs and behaviors. So it's not so easy. Let me give you a sample script which is quite dense. So imagine the topic is history and you hear this. The Renaissance, a period marking the transition from the Middle Ages to modernity, was characterized by a revival in art, literature and learning based on the classical sources. So what's the explanation here? Well, that's quite dense information, and it's dense with historical information about the Renaissance. So you've got to kind of process and pass through the detailed descriptions of that era. Next one, specialized vocabulary. So imagine we've got part 4, the topic is sociology. Sociological research often employs qualitative methodologies to explore the dynamics of social stratification, particularly in urban settings. Wow. What are the terms there? Qualitative methodologies, social stratification, urban settings. It's quite a lot of specialist vocabulary that you really need to get an understanding of. Social stratification means dividing up the society into different sort of like levels or different groups, different segments. Qualitative methodologies. I guess this means sort of like quantitative is empirical with like data and measurements, whereas qualitative would be like interviews and surveys, for example. So all of this stuff you need to, all of these vocabulary terms would be necessary. It would be necessary to understand these vocabulary terms if you want to excel in part 3. You see, even I'm struggling with trying to explain these. I have to rephrase it. So final one, topic complexity. Let's imagine we've got a script about environmental science. Today's lecture focuses on the alarming rate of coral bleaching in the Great Barrier Reef, Recent studies have linked this phenomenon primarily to the rise in sea temperatures, exacerbated by global warming. Wow. This script basically takes an environmental issue, coral bleaching, with a specific focus, the Great Barrier Reef, and it requires an understanding of ecological concepts such as rising seawater and the global impact, which comes from global warming. So you see, this is quite a tough section, and I honestly think a long and extended time of immersing yourself in the language, and if in your last exam you got a band 6.5 in the listening, if you start listening to academic discourse right now on YouTube, as I suggested, because you're aiming for a band 9, it could be incredibly challenging for you. First, I would start building up and listen to something a little bit more casual. Maybe work on understanding accents. Maybe then go to something a little bit more advanced, an everyday podcast. Maybe one about a topic such as golf, football, engineering, architecture. And then start branching out from there. Don't go from, listening to BBC 6 Minutes podcast to an academic discourse about semiconductors, for example. Okay? Go easy on yourself. Give yourself time. Be patient with yourself. You will get there in the end. It's just going to take a lot of elbow grease, as we say. It's going to take some time, effort, and energy. But if you've decided to take the IELTS, you're probably an ambitious, smart student already. Now's the time just to follow up with that ambition and make sure that your actions reflect your goals. That's it from me. If you're still struggling with the IELTS, then you can go to IELTSPodcast.com. You can download a ton of materials. You can use our free tools on our site, like the free essay checker. We're building more tools. We'll be releasing those soon. And that's it. And just one last thing. If this tutorial was useful for you, please share it with your friends. I would be very grateful if you could return the favor. I'm not asking you any money. These are completely free tutorials. All I ask is that if you enjoyed it, you got some value, help spread the love. Spread these tutorials around and we can help more people achieve their IELTS goals and reach their destination, dream job, dream career, dream university, dream residency, whatever it is. Do it.
Thanks for listening to IELTSPodcast.com.